So good morning, everyone. My name is Ghancha, and I'll be moderating the panel. The topic which was given is very exciting: data privacy, cybersecurity, and building organization. I think we can talk about hours and whole day for the same topic because that's what we live with every day. But with the panelists and with the objective to give you right insight and crisp insight about our experience, I have. Good industry experts from pharma, NBFC, manufacturing, retail, and of course finance, right? So, and a great thing that this is the virtual summit, and I can see right colors combinations between panelists, right? So typically in the physical event we only have black color with the suit and all, but right now you're working from home and we have different colors. So appreciate team. To jump into the topic, our first discussion point is we all are working from home. We are suffering from worldwide pandemic. We are working in disaster situation. So obviously while we started, it was actually a disease, but now we have seen that it is again cyber crisis as well, right? So many of the organizations have faced cyber crisis, ransomware attacks, emails, spam, and everything increase, right? Our role is increased a lot, right? So the question or the discussion point is, what are the planning and recovery options we have thought of or we are doing right now to handle the cyber crisis, right? And I want to ask, I'll start with Subhajit right now to talk about his expertise in this area.
Sure. Hi, Fal. Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. I think this has been truly an unprecedented event, and to a large extent, this is really the litmus test for each one of us. So we have had business continuity procedures, disaster recovery plans, everything in place. Most of us have been doing several DR drills over the years, right? But now this is where the proof of the pudding is in eating it, and this is exactly where every organization has actually been trying to put in place the disaster recovery plans and see how it works. I think what has really worked for organizations who have been able to sustain so far and will sustain going forward is to the ability to work the basics very, very well. So when you put together a business continuity plan, it is absolutely important to understand the business impact analysis as well. So understanding your processes, understanding your systems, understanding your people, assign the criticality, having the call tree defined, and the real fun in a business continuity exercise or a disaster recovery is to test and test and test and test again. Most of us who are from the financial institutions as well, we know the regulators insist really to do a live DR drill as opposed to a dummy DR drill. I think that kind of preparedness really helps. And we cannot prevent a disaster, right? So we create a disaster recovery procedures and those different plans only to be able to sustain and minimize the impact of it. And I think this has been truly an eye-opener. We have had to go back and look at our disaster recovery drills and the past drills when done, the lessons been learned, and really retweak and revamp the entire BCP program, so to speak. And I'm sure it's the same the case for everybody as well.
That's interesting. Very powerful response and very crisp output. I would like to bounce the question to Shweta from NBFC. If you can share your views and experience about this.
Thank you, Fal, for the question. So, like Subhajit said, it is we are RBI regulated organization. So we have to it is like in our everyday routine. We are supposed to do DR drills. We are supposed to test our systems for any kind of disaster. However, having said that, this situation was extremely different from a regular routine DR drill we do, or we for that matter, even if when we are planning our BCP, it is never foreseen that any situation like this would come in. You know, so I come from a legacy organizations where a legacy organization where we've been working in a brick and mortar structure since past 20 years. So for us to imagine our employees sitting back at home and working was never a thought of plan. And you won't believe we are into lending, and that too primarily into gold loan lending. So imagining our borrowers to not come to our branch and still be able to pay their interest was something that we had never thought of. So we, over a period of time, like 2 days, 3 days, we had built in a portal where our customers could log in and settle their interest. So that is kind of an exciting, journey, and a lot of learning through this entire experience.
That's a great insight. I would like to add here that I have experienced the BCP drill or DR drill for a couple of organizations, and trust me, let's say you have a DR drill member like 100 and 150 members, you always keep pushing them to do the drill, right? And trust me, they are least bothered. People are like, for them, it's a tick box exercise, right? And I've seen the management is still, not that serious. But now everyone talks about the DR drills, and you can see the management is now focusing, asking people in cybersecurity team, okay, what will happen if everyone works from home? Are we having enough licenses? Do we see any concern around cybersecurity? People are not connected to office, whether their machine will update. And so many senior management people are coming to us and asking the questions, right? So I've seen that the industry is now have experienced this and probably give us a chance to prove ourselves or show ourselves, okay, BCP was always important, right? So I've seen that. So what's the take from manufacturing, Ravi? What's your input on this?
Hi, Fal. See, from a manufacturing industries, as you said, our panel member, we have passed the litmus test from a IT side. So we always divide cyber security from IT as well as OT, operation technology part. So from IT we passed, so there are no issues. But from a OT point of view, because plants were shut down for last 2 months, now we have to switch on every plant one by one. So before we really switch on, we wanted to see whether these systems are updated, because for last 2 months we were not able to push any policies through a group policy. Now what we are doing is that we are doing a manual checkings of the systems whether it is updated with the latest antivirus. Otherwise, it is very easy to attack the systems from OT point of view, and it is a backbone for us. It is a bread and butter for us. So our litmus test is going to start literally now, from now maybe for next 10-15 days. So slowly we are building all the plants. We are starting all the plants, manually updating all the systems which are connected to a corporate network. So for us, actually, the real challenge is now, going forward, we have that challenge now.
Yeah, that's interesting. And now you will be actually testing your physical site and physical everything, right? Now, probably the challenge might be increased because systems are down for 2 months, right? People are working from home from technology, but obviously the physical systems were down, right? So, what's your take on the retail industry, Harshad?
Yeah, hi, Fal. Thank you everyone, and good morning. So I think for me, see, majority of our business was offline, and almost with this new unprecedented challenges, what we realized is actually we already had a online channel, so we made a use of online channel. As far as BCPDR is concerned, we were well compliant with all the norms. Uh, Fortunately, we also upgraded most of our technologies, foreseeing some kind of a challenges in coming years. So even the VPN connectivity, the even the bandwidth issues at remote locations, because many of our customers and also some of our support centers, they are working remotely. So we actually upgraded many of our technologies, and we were prepared for this kind of incident. But having said so, I think during COVID situation, what we realize is definitely there is definitely a policy changes which required, and definitely the enhancement in a lot of technologies is very much required.
That's interesting insight, right? Obviously, while you touch the customers, every customers across the country, you always have different challenges handling the cybersecurity as well, right? Now, moving to the next discussion point, probably mainly for the systems like very important SCADA systems. How do we effectively perform the vulnerability assessment, right? Obviously, we all know that performing the VAPD is still easy, but SCADA or OT systems where you don't have great option for remediation, right? You don't know whether you can patch the system or whether you can upgrade the system, because all systems are hardened, right? How do we deal with the vulnerability assessment process? Probably if you can start, Ravi, on this particular topic.
Okay, Fal. See, again, going back to the OT, which falls under our manufacturing industries, all SCADA PLC systems comes under OT part. And if you ask me, IT directly doesn't manage all these systems. So what is, the plant engineering guys manages these SCADAs and PLC systems, and they are in charge of it, and they do operations with them. So if IT guy goes and tells them that I need to do a VAPT, first they'll say that we don't have time, because they don't understand our priorities and IT objectives. So they may not be really interested in conducting a VAPT test. But though we couple of times we have done a VAP test, for us the downtime is a difficult part. So we will not get a downtime of these systems, because if the SCADA systems are normally, you should do in offline systems. VAPT, when you do it, you should do an offline, where that there's a plant holiday, because ours is a continuous process industry. Production will happen 24/7, because the raw material comes and we complete that into a finished good continuously. So getting a downtime is very difficult from these engineering guys. Second thing, even when we get a downtime also, when we conduct these tests, see, most of these reports it throws very huge list of observations, because they have to survive from their side. So they will throw huge observations for us by saying that this port is open, that port is open, this is not good, that is not good, and all. It is up to us actually how much we can take up. So these are called the residual risks. So how many residual risks we can take up in this industry, and because we also know that how we are functioning internally. So we balance like that. It is not that once you do a VAPT, some observations will be coming up, and if you try to address all these observations, even sometimes SCADA may not work. That is a risk for us. So we will not do all observations. We will not mitigate it. We will see what are the residual risk if we don't do it, and what is there. If anything is really has to be taken in the severity one, we will take up. So this is how we balance in the manufacturing industry.
Oh, that's interesting. I've been in the manufacturing for a decade, and I understand that, okay, they understand business or they understand production only, right? They will not allow you to touch their system, be it whatever you tell them, right? Because for them the business is first, and obviously cybersecurity comes second, right? So they might accept certain risk, but yeah, that's how it is, right? Subhajit, I think your area as well has great use of or vast use of all the OT and manufacture SCADA kind of system. So what are your take on this particular part of it?
So I think OT is a very different animal altogether, right? Because the objective is very different from the traditional IT space, where in IT we generally focus on data breach prevention or data leakage prevention. For OT, the focus is mostly on safety, availability, and as well as data integrity. Right. So the standard method of VAPT obviously does not work for OT systems, and also the skills needed to do a vulnerability analysis for an OT system is also a little different, because the protocols are different, the ports are very different, even the industrial malware is very, very different. What I've seen working like a charm in the industry is doing a black box or a gray box testing. Traditional OT space used to be air gap. That is not the case anymore, because you leverage a lot of big data, a lot of data lakes, IoT, and all of that. So because of it, a majority of your OT section is also exposed to the internet. So the risk has increased, however, the maturity has not, and that is why it needs an innovative method to do the vulnerability analysis and penetration. There is also a high degree of reliance on the OEMs itself. You have a dependency where you cannot push in a patch, you cannot install, you cannot afford a downtime. What is needed really is to understand and prioritize your OT machines. So taking a simple spectrum of determining what is the collateral damage potential of a connected equipment or a PLC or HPLC, what is the target population, and also the environmental factors. If there is a running exploit, if there is an attack in the wild, factor those in. One will have to very carefully chisel out the scope of the VAPT and then remediate them. Network microsegmentation, network isolation, ring fencing the network, all of that also works like a charm, because a traditional OT system will have a lot of legacy systems, and the cost of upgrade those systems are exorbitantly high, and it simply outweighs the risk or the reward as well. So it is important to have the scope right, get the people right, do things which does not break the business, and take a very, very prioritized approach, as opposed to do a VAPT and remediation of all IT systems. That's what my take is.
That's interesting insight. Very crisp answer. Any input from Harshad or Shweta?
So I think in our case, this doesn't hold that much of an importance because, yeah, most of our workloads are on the cloud, and from the OT perspective, no, doesn't matter that much.
That's great. Yeah, so I would like to ask questions around obviously cloud. Nowadays, I think we have seen in even classically in the work from environment, you have two scenarios to handle, right? One is your cloud ecosystem, and second is your endpoints, right? Now there are two aspects here. How do we, in this scenario, handle the cloud security? Right, specifically, people are using G Suites or AWS or Azure as of the world. How do we handle the cloud security and ensure that that your systems are updated, well updated and protected from cybersecurity attacks? Your thoughts? Probably
So,
Harshad, or Shweta, I can start. Yeah.
yeah. So we've been lucky in that case because 2 years back we started our cloud journey, and as on date, all our critical business applications are on the cloud. As regards security, also we have a cloud-based antivirus system. So all our endpoints are wherever they are. So there is no boundary, as in the geographical location tagging for an endpoint. In our work from home scenario, also wherever the endpoints were, they could connect to the antivirus and get updated. And similarly for the business applications, because there were already two-factor authentication and other things in place, we could significantly manage without making much of a change in the existing policy.
That's interesting. What's your on this, Harshad?
Yeah, so I think many of our critical applications are on-premise, though we have a couple of important applications on cloud. What I have seen is basically when you have multiple clouds, you always have a challenge in managing the governance. The governance piece is something which is very, very difficult. Second piece is basically who needs to have access, how needs to be authentication and authorization is always a challenge, because if you have an on-premise system, you can't really expose your AD to the cloud, and at the same time you can't allow them to have a seamless authentications without getting with the AD. So that's something which we have seen. The authentication authorization is always a challenge. So we are quite lucky enough to have a bridge between both of them, to have good technologies in place to ensure that the governance is taken care of, and at the same time data movement. Because right now, if you ask me, the whole world is moving towards data-oriented security, and we have taken a good steps there. Actually, most of our critical data is on premise. We try to ensure that very limited, it's like a zero trust kind of a model which we have built, where very limited people will have a core system data. Most of the other data or the vendors, they will not have access to the core data, but they will come through some of the stations or some kind of a middleware. So we have taken those steps even for the cloud service providers, and even for the clouds also. If we integrate any of our application, we have ensured that those parameters or even the security is there in the all the places, right from the data at rest and data in motion. So we have taken those steps, and I think that's what is basically happening in next couple of years time.
Jeff, that's very interesting and very close topic from our heart, which is data security. So let's jump into the discussion of data privacy, right? And everyone knows about the draft Data Privacy Act, the first draft and the second draft which came. Now, I wanted to bounce back this particular idea or a question that how do we probably get ourselves ready? So do you really feel our InfoSec team is ready? Just to give background, right now, if you talk about industry, if they know where all customer data is stored, I think the answer is no, right? We don't know our own data stored in Excel, the non unencrypted databases, or file shares, file servers and all that, right? We don't know where the data is, right? So do you really feel we are ready for the data privacy actions? Subhajit, you can start your view on this.
Sure. So I think data privacy is a very novel concept, at least for in India, because our culture is not very privacy conscious. But then when you work with an organization which has a significant global presence, and most of these geographies like EU, Russia, China, US has very strong privacy laws. You don't have a choice but to do data privacy as if you really believe it, right? Now, there are certain things which is needed. Of course, the tone at the top is extremely important. And what really works in terms of data privacy, because we've been implementing since 2018 because of our business across the different geographies, is to be able to really foster and build the concept and the culture of privacy by default and privacy by design. So several principles which are required for privacy in terms of lawfulness, or fairness, or the transparency, purpose limitation. Am I collecting the data which is needed for fulfilling that particular objective, or is there any superfluous data, or there is any secondary usage? Data minimization becomes a very important consideration. We generally love to take a truckload of data, whether we need it or not, but then minimize. The more data we collect, the more accountability or more liability I carry with me, right? And then one has to very carefully understand what is my risk exposure in terms of data privacy. Of course, it brings immense opportunities to harmonize all assurance functions together, because and board generally will sit back and take notice, because there is an astronomically high amount of penalty associated with most of these regulations. So it brings an enormous amount of opportunity to integrate and harmonize several assurance functions together, build more holistic security program. It is not easier, but then if you are able to build a data governance model slowly, because there are legacy systems, you will not be able to discover the data, you will not be able to tag and classify them at one go, but over a period of time there would be a better grasp of how privacy can be managed. And to me, I personally have seen it has improved the overall maturity of infosec and privacy by doing privacy principles and privacy implementation.
That's a great insight. I think from my view is we definitely have got support from senior management about data. So earlier we used to talk to them about data classification or DLP kind of systems, and they have other priorities as well, right? The financial crisis and everything, right? But right now, considering the DPA is on the way and people are expecting something out of this particular data jargons, I'm sure they have support. They are now supporting us, right? What's your take, Ravi, on this from a manufacturing side?
See, data confidentiality, we will look into two different angles. So the commonly used is the confidentiality, integrity, availability. That is for IT guys. So if you see the priority for IT part, confidentiality is the highest priority. So even a system is not available for some time, it is okay, we can tolerate. But the data has to be confidential and it has to be secured. But from OT side, that is not the priority. From a OT side, availability is the priority. So if you see CIA, if you see the priority, C comes first in IT, but C comes last in OT. So for OT guys, availability is the first priority. So the systems, production system should be available. So we need to balance from this CI to the AAC between IT and OT. That is a major challenge for a manufacturing industries from a data privacy point of view. Second thing is that whether it is the Indian Privacy Act or whatever acts, GDPR, anything, SOX, statutory, fundamentally, what are the confidential rules which you have in your company? See, that will take you to the any law which comes. Tomorrow something may come. Tomorrow, or it will add up, or it will increase, or some Europe, Europe is there. American guys may come up with some other laws. So fundamentally, how strong you are in classifying the data in your company. And the third is that if you see from IT side, you also might have faced the challenge. Business comes to us and they say that no, we have to take a responsibility of a confidentiality of a data. Like IT is a custodian of the data, but did they classify the data? See, we cannot classify the data whether it is a confidential, highly confidential, or it can be internally circulated, and we are not supposed to do also. So the ownership of the data has to be first clearly noted down by saying that yes, this type of a data is the owner, HR is the owner, this is the data, production is the owner, this is the type of a budget, data, finance, accounts is the owner. This ownership has to come irrespective of any law. So once this ownership of the data comes, then IT guys are the custodians. We will put the barrier 1, 2, 3. We'll put all these shields and all, and we will secure it. Keys are with us. But who owns the data? That is very important. And third is from a people point of view, whether they are having awareness in the company about the data confidentiality. They may take it very lightly. Now, see, because of this COVID-19, we allowed so many systems to be connected to our corporate network, even if they bring their own systems.
That's correct.
Earlier, we were restricting to a BOID to some extent. We put some policies, so we have to say that we will push our image, we will put our antivirus, we will put our DLP, blah blah blah. Because it's unexpected. Who doesn't have a laptop? We said, boss, okay, you connect it. Okay, so this asset inventory also we don't have. And how much awareness they have from a data confidentiality in the company. So that is very thing. And whether these are covered in a policy, proper policy, because if the tone comes from a top management as a policy, that no, we will, it is seriously taken. No, if any confidentiality is there, at least people have that awareness and fear. If the proper policies are not implemented and not rolled out, and it is not sent. One more thing is that when we are monitoring the users' data, as per law, we are supposed to tell them by saying that we are monitoring your data. So the policy has to go and circulate it, and that awareness has to come from a data privacy. So these all are the challenges which we face and which we need to address from a people, process, and technology. Technology, if you ask me, that is the last priority for me. Process, people, these are first two priorities. Then technology comes. Once we have the rigid process to secure the confidentiality, without technology also we can survive. Technology will only help us and it will enable us.
That's a fair point. I think the two major takeaways from a long explanation is, one is we need to define the ownership, right? Who will own the data? Probably right now only InfoSec or CISO is the owner of data, and he or she is always behind people to take care of the data. And second is obviously the technology around it, right? How do we probably solve the issues? There are so many technology issues. People are working on iPads or Surface Pro or Mac. How do we actually technically solve all the combination? And right now the different degree of angle is working from home with their personal devices, right? So yeah, the technology challenges always comes hand in hand. What's your take, Shweta, on this particular part of it?
Yeah, so I'll just keep it short. We are into customer service industry, and whatever data we are collecting from our customers, we are obliged to take the responsibility of keeping it intact and secure. And whatever guidelines are there in terms of the regulatory bodies, over and above that, we have to understand that the data breaches that are happening, like today morning, also you must have read that Truecaller is compromised some amount of data. Few days back, we heard about one job site getting compromised. So all of that being in place, we are obliged to keep the data secure. And now that we are going into the biometric data storage, it is very, very daunting to keep the entire policy intact and gaining the confidence of the customer, because at the end of the day, they are the ones whom we have to rely on to take on the business forward.
That's interesting. Good. Harshad, your final view.
Yeah, so I think this is a very close aspect. See, in retail industry, we hold a lot of data. Now, I will put it in multiple phases. Like what we have seen is basically policy. Of course, policy is the first thing which we can address. Keeping the policy intact, aligned with the government direction, is something which is very much required. But the second piece, which I think is more important, is the user awareness. I think many of us already discussed many of the challenges. What I have seen is basically many of time, many of our users comes to us and ask us whether this particular piece of information shall I classify this under the confidentiality or sensitivity, or shall I say this is private. So my take here is basically, user awareness is the most important thing when it comes to privacy, because implementing DLP is not a solution to be compliant on the privacy laws. Monitoring, of course, is very much important. At the same time, what I feel is basically users should be educated, as Ravi and Shweta and even Subhajit rightly mentioned. Discovery is something which is very, very important, because nowadays a lot of data is, unnecessarily kept. So data minimization is very much important. data discovery in terms of whether this Excel file, does it have sensitive data? That discovery in in both sides, like the structured file as well as the unstructured file, rich media file, how we are actually addressing those, how we are actually storing those data, whether we know the do we know what kind of a data we are hosting. That is something which is very essential. And post that, operationalizing all security controls which we have identified. So keeping a data champion in across each BU, so that he can actually ease of CISO or DPO's work. That will be very essential, because business knows the confidentiality of data. If we educate them and keep somebody accountable within the business for data confidentiality and privacy, then I think the selling of securities and protecting data security is very interesting, and I think will be easy for many businesses.
That's interesting insight. I think before we jump into the next discussion, I would like to announce that, okay, for the audience, if you have any questions, please type on your Q&A or chat area, and we'll be answering your questions soon. Then the last aspect I wanted to touch upon is, we all are suffering from this work from home and a different work experience scenario, and obviously DPA is on its way, right? So now, do you really feel that, okay, we'll be ready soon to handle this particular new act, or we might ask for extension, right? How do we prepare ourselves for that, right? So probably start with Subhajit on this.
Yeah, so I think just like it happened with GDPR as well, there would be very few organizations who would be able to implement the entire act in its entirety. I think what would be important for every organization, however, is to able to demonstrate the progression towards compliance of most of the factors. Yeah, and people and organizations which has a multi-geographical presence and has already been some of the privacy aspects in place, it will be little easier for them. But for an organization who has never done anything about privacy, it's going to be a very Herculean task. And obviously, one cannot do all of it. It does not make sense, because there's going to be evolvement of business, influx of new data coming into the system, new processes, new tools, new technologies. So it is important to again prioritize. And what is important is able to be put in a place a data governance model, able to, there's an ability which is needed to be able to respond to data subjects when it is time, and breach prevention. I think if largely these three areas are prioritized, we should be able to move towards maximum adherence.
That's great insight. What's your take, Ravi, on this?
See, moreover, I think we are ready. At like wherever we really respect customer, because we are ready with. May not be 100%, because 100% cannot be achieved at any time, but at least we are ready. For example, if you see, we are ready with the company laws. In company law also speaks about data privacy. We are doing so many statutory audits. We are having a SOX 404 audits. Okay, we have different types of audits which we have, IT Act. So all audits are actually taking towards the data privacy only. So moreover, we are ready. It is not that exactly maybe we will not be matched to the control, risk to the risk, but we are gearing up towards that data privacy only. As I said, wherever customer we feel that is very important for us, we are already taking care of their data. But how you classify, some will say personal data sensitivity, whether phone number comes under PSD or not. So those areas we need to little bit customize it. But otherwise, all reputed companies, as I said, whoever gives the importance priority for a customer data, they are gearing up. They are ready actually.
Lovely inputs. Trust me, we are surrounded by full of audit almost 365 days a year, and auditors are also gearing up to ask questions around data privacy. They're having concern around DLP solutions, their controls, their blocking mode. Auditors are actually asking whether you have implemented a blocking mode, whether you have defined PII, and trust me, it's the next wave, right? And everyone will talk about it. So, Shweta, your last view on this.
So yes, like Ravi said, I like to take on from there that more or less, yes, we are ready. We are also undergoing a lot of statutory audits and compliance checks. However, yes, a deep dive would definitely be required before the law comes into play.
That's interesting. Harshad, your input from retail side of data privacy.
So I would say that we are prepared. So there will be definitely unprecedented challenges or unforeseen challenges which we probably encountered. But of course, policy side, we have we are prepared. As Subhajit also rightly mentioned, data governance is the most important piece in the entire data privacy implementation. So I think that is something which is right now our focus is on data. From a data leakage standpoint, the monitoring tools definitely are very much required and they are already in place. So I would say we are prepared for the Data Privacy Act.
That's interesting insight. I think the confidence still actually shows that okay, people are now, and I'm sure many of the CISOs have experienced GDPR, for organizations, right? People have felt that okay, they have EU customers, and GDPR is always given some flavor, and obviously DPA is always seen as a GDPR plus, right, with some amendments. So I think people are now thinking towards that. COVID situation will definitely have an impact, but yeah, that will only last or extend the deadline, nothing beyond that, right? We are now concluding. I think we have no questions. You are really a great audience, and thank you so much, the entire panelists. It was really great insight. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Firstly, a big thank you to all our panelists, Subhajit, Shweta, Ravikiran, Harshad, and Pal. You guys were great. Thank you once again for joining us today.